It's time once again to rate some Pokémon, but this time, it's in 3D! Yep, we've officially entered the 3D era of Pokémon games, as the developers finally transitioned away from sprite-based games and never looked back. Pokémon X and Y took advantage of the 3DS hardware to finally give our favorite critters an extra dimension. And with that extra dimension, you'd imagine the new Pokémon for this generation would be designed with 3D models in mind.
But whether they designed them this way or not, we're here to judge them nevertheless. If you've been following this series so far, you know the rules by now. We're rating all 122 new Pokémon from this generation. This includes 72 new creatures and 50 Mega Evolutions across both X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, all of which are getting their own ratings on a scale from 1 to 10 based on their design, uniqueness, and usefulness in battle. Now, we know that Groudon and Kyogre technically don't have Mega Evolutions, but Primal Reversion, and we know that those aren't the same thing. For the purposes of this video, it's just easier for us to classify them as a Mega. So with that out of the way, let's get to the ratings.
Despite not having a stupendous design, I can't hate Chespin just because it's so dang cute. He's got a simple but nondescript shape that's maybe a little abstract, but I think it works for the most part.
Chespin is pretty alright. Not an amazing starter, but not a bad pick either.
This looks like Chespin's older brother who's more of a jerk, and being the older brother myself, I semi-relate to Quilladin, even if it's not that great.
I don't know, he's just kinda round. Not really a fan of Quilladin.
And I guess this would be Chespin's dad? I don't mind that the colors are radically different, but in my opinion, Chestnut looks pretty bland.
I used to not really be a fan of Chestnut, but its design has really grown on me over the years. I think it's the start of my XY nostalgia.
What I like most about Fennekin is that the red and orange doesn't dominate the design this time. That's been a trait of all the other fire starters except for Cyndaquil, and it makes this one stand out. Plus, points for cuteness.
Fennekin is pretty cute. Again, not stellar, but good nonetheless.
This might be the first middle starter so far that, at least for me, translates and upscales the first evolution flawlessly. Not in the sense that it's a better Pokemon, but more that it looks exactly like an older Fennekin, and I like that.
Nope, not a fan. And what's with the stick in the tail?
I like the idea, but I think the design of Delphox is a bit much. I think the fur pattern does it in for me.
Once again, I wasn't really a fan of this Pokemon until recently. It does fix a lot of the issues I have with Braixen.
I'm torn on Froakie. It's not awful, but doesn't really appeal to me.
While I really love the Froakie line, I do think that this is another generation where there is no real bad starter choice.
Oh god, what happened here? I've been overall very kind to the starter Pokemon across the entire series, but Frogadier gets no love from me.
I'm not huge on this design, but it's the least bad of the middle starter evolutions.
I kinda like Greninja, but again, it's just not really for me. I'm sure it's a good Pokemon and all, you don't get into Smash Brothers for nothing, but it's not my cup of tea. But points for being far better than Frogadier, and I also might prefer Ash Greninja just because it brings in that anime protagonist energy.
This is an amazing design for a Pokemon, and it's obvious why this made it into Smash Brothers. I prefer regular Greninja. Ash Greninja is just a bit too much for me.
Making a bunny for the Route 1 normal type is a great idea, and Bunnelby is pretty solid, even if it isn't extravagant in any way.
It's a kinda cute little bunny. Nothing special about it, really.
The ears for Digging are a nice touch, but I really don't care for Diggersby.
Really not a huge fan of this design. It's still pretty good as an early route catch though.
Getting a wee bit sick of the generic bird Pokemon. Let's pump these up a bit, please.
It's just a bird, but that's really all it needs to be. I also think this is a great example of the change in design principles of Pokemon throughout the years. Compare the roundness of this and the sharpness of Pidgey.
The same, but now it's Discount Torchic.
A better design, and a fire type to set it apart from other Route 1 birds. Nice.
Okay, making this a bird of prey and a firebird was basically precision designed to appeal to me, although realistically, it's not super impressive.
Pretty early into the generation, and we already have a perfect design in my eyes.
Nope, don't like this one.
Don't like the gray bug with a single buck tooth design going on here.
This is just Scatterbug with fur, but that fur actually improves this quite a bit.
It's a bit better, and does set itself apart from most other Cocoon Pokemon that evolve from similar caterpillar-inspired designs.
It's not the best butterfly Pokemon, but thanks to the wing design, it is at least very pretty. There are a lot of great forms, but for my favorite, it's a tie between Icy Snow pattern and Marine pattern, the former for its simple yet elegant design, and the latter for its striking blue color.
Number 666, the true Satan Pokemon. There's also so many patterns to choose from. If I had to pick, I think my favorite is Polar pattern, though Fancy, Pokeball, and Icy Snow are also great.
This just screams, I want to be the fire starter Pokemon, but I'm not good enough. And it's true, it's not good enough.
Just a cute little lion cub. Nothing too special here.
Pyroar isn't that bad overall, but nothing all that special, with one exception. The mane on the female Pyroar is absolutely stunning.
It took long enough for a simple lion Pokemon to be made, and for a fire type, this is about what could be expected. I'm not huge on the deep red and yellow of the mane on the male form though.
It's kinda just a flower with a little doofus tagging along, but it's not a bad Pokemon at least. I like the orange flower form myself because orange flowers are pretty.
Our first in-game introduction to the fairy type, and quite a fine one at that. I think I like blue flower the best.
Now that the creature part of Floette has taken over, I like this line a bit more now, and I'm still team orange flower form supremacy.
It's more of the same as Flabebe, no real differences. I still think I prefer blue flower.
Incorporating everything that was great about the previous evolutions and pumping up the whole design with some nice improvements, Florges ends it on a strong note. This time I prefer red flower form because the red bouquet hairline looks spectacular.
This change is much more appreciated compared to Floette. I think I actually prefer red flower this time over blue.
Not a fan of the colors on this one, but Skiddo is pretty solid.
A cute little goat kid. I wish you could ride them around more than in just the one pen, I think. Maybe these could have replaced the bike.
The same, but an adult.
A solid design. Nothing special, but visually distinct.
Pandas are pretty dang cool, and Pancham is no exception. And although it doesn't always work for me, I like the scampy attitude on this one.
Pancham is just an angry little dude, and that's cool.
Insert Kung Fu Panda joke here. Also, Pangoro is badass, although I'm not super duper sure of the fur cape.
I really don't know how to feel about this design. I really like it, but it just appears off in some way.
Poodles are fine enough, I guess, but when it comes to that stereotypical accessorize your poodle look, I'm not a fan. That's why I prefer the natural form because, you know, that's how it should be.
Yep, that's a poodle. I think my favorite is the matron trim. Most of the other trims are too showy for me, and the natural form's fur looking unkempt puts me off too much.
I know this one is popular because it's evidently a mood, and while I'm not that into Esper, it's a nice Pokemon.
Oh look, it's the funny meme Pokemon from 2013. I really didn't, and still don't, understand people's obsession with Esper before the game launched.
Looking cool, Joker!
A much better design than Esper, simple and distinct.
So I'm pretty picky when it comes to sword designs, and Honedge does not really appeal to me. Shorter and wider swords have to work extra hard to be in my wheelhouse, and this being a living creature doesn't win it any favors.
This is one of the best non-animal inspired designs in all of Pokemon.
What of Honedge, but two of them? And also, the pink sash looks a little worse.
While I love Honedge, I'm not as keen on Doublade. I get what it's going for, and I like the change to pink-purple, but something just doesn't sit right with me.
Aegislash is better, yet not enough to make it a great design. I like shield form more because the combination of an offensive and defensive weapon works for me.
This is Honedge, but better. Which shouldn't be possible given Honedge is 10 out of 10, but it is.
There's enough going on here to elevate it above the moniker of generic cute sphere, with the plumage and the Plague Doctor mask facial design giving Spritzy some points.
It's not terrible, but I'm not really a Spritzy fan.
Ugh, they lost me quite a bit with this one. Aromatisse is not terrible, but the floofiness actually works heavily against it.
Nope. That's it, just nope.
Now here's the generic cute sphere with a dopey face to boot.
It's not great, but it's a little silly at least.
This is purely personal opinion, but I don't care for Slurpuff at all. I suppose it works fine enough for what it's intended to do, but all of those elements are ones I don't care for. So sorry, Slurpuff, but you're not getting any love from me.
Still just as silly, but it doesn't really fit as well as it did with Swirlix.
In K, more like, K.
Little squid. Squiddle.
We get it, guys. The 3DS had accelerometers in it, and you wanted to take advantage of that. You should be really proud. Anyway, I'm not a fan of Malamar, but I do wonder how many people evolved Inkay by accident because they just so happened to have the system upside down at the time. They have to be out there, right?
I'm not really sure why, but Malamar's design rules. Not a fan of evolving with the console upside down, however.
What the fuck?
A 2, 1 for each head.
What the double fuck?
A 7, 1 for each head. I think I'd like it a bit better if the head was shaped like the rest of the barnacles and not like a hand.
This little turd is like if you took the Seadra line and sucked out everything good about it. And I like seahorses, or sea dragons, whatever.
Skrelp isn't anything special, and might actually be a bit busy of a design.
I guess that's better?
Another Pokemon that I think is awesome, but can't really explain why. Maybe leafy sea dragons are cool, I don't know.
Simple design, great colors, and different enough from the other crustacean Pokemon so far. Clauncher's pretty neat.
A pretty basic mantis shrimp design. Kinda cool.
Clawitzer is pretty cool, and probably has the best name of this generation so far.
Man, Gen 6 really has some good sea creature themed designs, doesn't it?
Well, look at this cute little dumbass. Helioptile is a silly boy.
It's pretty cute, though a bit simple on the color palette.
Heliolisk also has a bit of silliness going on, but the extra sun-like elements are a nice touch.
That's better. I really like the sun aesthetic not being on a fire or grass type.
I've got nothing to say about Tyrunt. I'm just gonna predict that Dribson's gonna make a reference to fossil fighters.
Tyrunt is a cute little Tyrannosaurid, and it's surprising it took this long for a fossil Pokemon to be based off of a T-Rex.
Did he make the fossil fighters reference like I said he would? If not, then forget about little old me. Also, Tyrantrum is pretty dang cool.
Tyrantrum is just epic. Nothing else to really say about it.
Well, that's an interesting design. Amaura could have easily been less than stellar, but it all works pretty well.
Amaura is one of the few, maybe the only, fossil Pokemon that can be described as pretty.
I have literally never seen this Pokemon before writing this script, and I am absolutely enthralled. I haven't been super kind this generation, but Aurorus is fantastic.
Aurorus continues the trend of being a pretty fossil.
Trans rights, motherfuckers. But even beyond that, this is a beautiful Pokemon and a very worthy evolution. And look at that, 2 10s in a row from me.
I remember when Sylveon was first teased, before the fairy type had been announced, and we were discussing what type it could be. I think flying was a high contender, or if it was a new type.
Hawlucha is a great idea with a great execution, and that's all you need sometimes.
Hawlucha is one of the most standout designs from XY, and its unique dual-type move Flying Press is an interesting idea that should be looked at more in the future.
What if Raichu, but Hamtaro'd?
It took a while, but we hit the Pikachu clone for the generation, and this one is alright.
Don't have anything to say about this one, but while I have you all here, has anybody seen my keys?
It's a rock bunny thing? I never really was a fan of Carbing's design.
What if Ditto, but also a generic cute sphere?
This is another one that I never really understood the almost cult following that Gumi had around the time that the games came out.
A better design on this one, but that face creeps me out. Reminds me of Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Sliggoo just looks so much weirder than Gumi. Gumi's silliness was at least kinda charming.
Goodra ends on a pretty solid note, even if it looks like, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it is the best way to describe it that I can think of, a curvier Mewtwo.
Not the best design, and maybe this could have benefited from the poison type, but it's a solid way to end the Gumi line.
Oh hey, I found my keys.
Klefki was the butt of all the out-of-idea jokes for this generation, and while I can't really defend this like I could Vanillite, it's still just a little bit goofy, and I like that.
Wow, Phantump is surprisingly great. Excellent idea, and while the typical ghost design for a spirit part isn't extravagant, the skull-looking tree trunk mask is an excellent touch.
Spooky ghost tree.
Can't help but feel like Trevenant lost something in its evolution from Phantump, looking a little bit too generic RPG tree monster to me, but it's not bad at all.
Scary ghost tree.
Pumpkin Boy commits treat invasion.
A jack-o'-lantern is a great design for a grass ghost type Pokemon. I just wish it wasn't right after the superior grass ghost type this generation.
It's fine, but I don't have much to say about Gourgeist.
Not as great as Trevenant, but still a wonderful design given the inspiration.
Damn, Bergmite, you are not doing any favors for the ice type.
Bergmite has always just kind of been there when I think about the Gen 6 Pokemon.
I kinda like the idea of an ice turtle golem thing, but Avalugg isn't all that spectacular.
I always thought that Avalugg looked a bit funny and kinda like a table.
I'd be much more inclined to give Noibat crap for being a bit of a generic bat, but Zubat fits that description much more, so I can actually appreciate this one. And hey, bats are neat.
I remember rumors circulating about a new type being added into XY while new things were being revealed, and one of the stronger rumors was the addition of the sound type, and it was either this or Noivern that were the catalyst to those rumors.
Damn, I really want to like Noivern because the purple and black combination is incredible, but it's a bit too busy and I can't say I like the green accents.
Sometimes I look back and wonder what would have happened if a sound type was introduced. Noctowl, Exploud, Chimecho, Kricketune, Chatot, Seismitoad. A lot of existing Pokemon could have become a new type as well. Anyway, I like Noivern.
While Xerneas is far from my favorite legendary, it is at least a striking design, at least with active mode, which is my preferred form by the way.
I'm not huge on Xerneas, but I think it's funny that a discovery in Generation 9 means that, in the Hackmon's battle format, Xerneas is locked into its regular Fairy Aura ability, as in Gen 9, Pokemon must be sent out in their base form, preventing Pokemon such as Blade Form Aegislash from being hacked into the party. Xerneas technically has a base form, Neutral Mode, and turns into active mode when sent out into battle.
Can't say I care for Yveltal all that much, but it does look like it wants to give you a big ol' hug, although that third arm is reaching for an uncomfortable place, so, maybe avoid that.
Having picked Y as my game of choice for Gen 6, I am partial to Yveltal over Xerneas.
I'm primarily basing this rating off of Zygarde Complete, because it's not just aping off of Houndoom and Arbok, but the Complete form is pretty damn badass, and obviously my favorite form.
But for some reason, I really like Zygarde as a Pokemon, even its only form in this game, now known as 50% form. I think 50% is my favorite form of Zygarde, though 10% is close.
Diancie is pretty dang cute, and a respectable Pokemon this far into the decks.
Diancie was the first event-distributed legendary Pokemon I ever was able to obtain, thanks to the unlimited cards available at GameStop.
Blech, don't like this one. I guess I like Hoopa Confined more because it looks less dumb?
Hoopa is kinda just there. Definitely feels like the Mew clone of the generation, at least design-wise. I think I prefer Hoopa Confined since, and I don't know why I think this, but Hoopa Unbound reminds me too much of Eraser Jin from Sonic and the Secret Rings.
Ladies and gentlemen, we found the most boring Pokemon to end the new creatures on, because Volcanion is pretty lame.
While I really dislike the design, Volcanion turning the water type into the first type to be paired with every other type, this being fire, is pretty cool.
This is basically just Venusaur, but I guess the extra details make it a little better?
It's pretty much more of Venusaur, but doesn't do enough to distinguish itself from base Venusaur.
Alright, Charizard X is badass. You can deride this as just a black and blue Charizard, but the added spikes make it an incredible form. And no, I don't mean that black and blue.
This is what Charizard should have been from the start, and it's finally earned its dragon typing.
As much as I love Charizard, I think the wings and more rugged and angular design on this one don't work as well. Still great, but less so.
It's just Charizard 1.5, and suffers the same as Mega Venusaur does.
This is a case where I think they leaned in too hard on the standard Blastoise design rather than adding some new quirk or gimmick. I get that Mega Evolutions are more of a temporary power-up, more akin to a final form, but in hindsight, it doesn't make these mons stand out as much.
Mega Blastoise does a lot to differ from its base form to be distinct compared to the other starters, while still maintaining its own identity.
Funnily enough, this does change Alakazam significantly, but nothing is either better or worse than the original design, so same score.
Mega Alakazam is such a comical improvement over base Alakazam, but I'm still not the biggest fan of the design.
This is what I'm talking about, recognizable but significantly different from the original and a really cool take on Gengar.
I think that Mega Gengar strays a bit too far away from base Gengar and what its pre-evolutions built up.
What if Kangaskhan, but all grown up?
Okay, while I really like Kangaskhan's design, Mega Kang is extremely lazy. A very good design, but very lazy.
This works for me a lot better than normal Pinsir thanks to the pretty cool wings, but I'm still not a fan of Pinsir itself, so it's inevitably going to lose points.
This is pretty busy, and has too much going on for it compared to Pinsir's simpler design and coloring.
Oh wow, I actually might prefer this to regular Gyarados. You have to try pretty hard to improve on that one, but Mega Gyarados knocks it out of the park.
I'm not the biggest fan of Gyarados to begin with, and this just doesn't look right to me.
No way.
The rocks jutting out of Mega Aerodactyl just don't look all that great.
Interesting choice from Mewtwo to turn part of its tail into battle armor, but I think that kinda works.
It's certainly more Mewtwo, that's for sure.
Mew and a half.
I remember vividly the discussions of this being Mew 3 before Mega Evolution was announced for these games. Good times.
Hot damn, Ampharos has got some style and hair now.
This is pretty much everything that Ampharos needed. Fluffy hair, dragon type, and beads.
Hey look, it's Future Paradox Caesar. I'll call him Ironclaw.
Another design that I think went a bit too overboard into one aspect of a Pokemon, this being the pincers, and not really trying to build up the Pokemon's design as a whole.
Watch out, this one's finna stab ya.
Once again, a design that gets too busy upon Mega Evolving.
Pains me to say this since Houndoom is fantastic, but they went overboard on this one. Sorry pal, I love you, but this is too much.
While it's not as egregious, there's still a lot going on here compared to base Houndoom.
While it does lose some points from regular Tyranitar for me, I think this is still a pretty solid upgrade, and turning the blue plates red was a nice touch.
This kinda just stomps base Tyranitar's slick kaiju design and replaces it with a kid's drawing of a cooler kaiju.
This Mega Evolution is so good that it actually makes me look at regular Blaziken with a little more disdain. This is the superior Fire Chicken.
While I love Blaziken's design, I can't quite sing the same praises to its Mega Evolution. Still great, but not perfect.
It's just Gardevoir with a different dress.
Game Freak probably knew that putting Gardevoir in a wedding dress would be a terrible thing to give to the community, but I still really love the design.
As one of my Dark Horse favorites from Gen 3, the fact that Mawile got a Mega Evolution makes me happy, and seeing that it's this awesome just makes me even happier.
This is a simple improvement of the design which, although it focuses on the important element a bit heavily, still somehow manages to work out in the end.
Quiet everybody, Grandpa Aggron's gonna tell us a story.
Oh lord, what did they do to Aggron? Butchered a perfectly good Metallic Titan design, that's what.
I guess I like that Mega Medicham added some cool new features, but the base design is still going to bother me.
The Indian/Hindu inspirations of Mega Medicham are a lot more apparent, and in my opinion better designed than in its base form.
Oh god, Manectric, what did they do to you?
What if we took a dog and slapped a giant thunderbolt down its back?
This is a very significant upgrade over Banette. It takes what is a decent but uneventful Pokemon and turns it into gold.
I actually quite like Mega Banette. It really feels like a new Pokemon built from the base Pokemon form.
From one of the most iconic Gen 3 Pokemon, they did Absol justice and then some. Love this design so much.
Emo Furry Bait.
I think they lost me with this one unfortunately, and Mega Latias's come at me bro stance in the artwork doesn't help.
I don't really know what to say about this. I'm really not a fan of the body design they went for, and I kinda get the purple being a mix of red and blue, and them having the same body plan, but I don't think it works.
The same, but zoom in.
At a glance, you can't really tell these two apart, and having no visible silhouette differences is quite the issue.
I may get some flack for this, but Mega Garchomp is worse in just about every way. Not enough to be on the lower end of the rating scale, but enough to criticize.
How did they manage to take such a cool design and try to make it so cool it loops around to being not cool?
A respectable upgrade to Lucario that isn't as timeless of a design, but is cool regardless.
It's just kinda more Lucario, and not in a great way unfortunately.
Why does this remind me of those Hungarian sheepdogs? Like this is just a dog from the Odelay cover, but fused with a snowy tree monster.
While Abomasnow is at least a fairly distinct design, this is just a blob with 6 protrusions.
You know, for just being a bee, at least Beedrill had personality. This does not.
Mega Beedrill is an infinitely cooler Beedrill, tougher, more intimidating, and a whole 1 foot 4 inches taller.
I'm still no huge fan of the Pidgeot line, and especially Pidgeot itself, but Mega Pidgeot might just win me over.
A pretty decent upgrade over base Pidgeot, while not straying too far from the original design. Mega Slowbro is pretty funny, not gonna lie.
Another instance of trying too hard. Some things about Mega Steelix are cool, make no mistake, but it's like they didn't know exactly how to improve on Steelix, so they just tried everything.
I don't think this is nearly as clean of a design as Steelix, which is unfortunate, as I actually really like the crystals coming out of its body and encircling it.
It's still not a great design, but it does improve over normal Sceptile, so hey, that's a thing.
I believe that Mega Sceptile is just barely an improvement over base Sceptile. Not enough for a point difference, but in spirit.
What if Swampert, but Roid Rage?
Mega Swampert, on the other hand, just does not look good. Like, at all.
Sable Knight? It's yours, my friend, as long as you have a big enough ruby.
It's pretty much just the same as regular Sableye, with more gems, a shield, and evil red eyes.
Ew, no!
They just stretched Sharpedo a bit, added a lot of yellow, and called it a day. Not really the biggest fan, to be honest.
This is kinda clever, I guess, but I'm still not a big fan. Just looks too goofy to me.
Mega Camerupt, on the other hand, is quite the improvement over its base form. It even removed the weird 000 from the side of its body.
I absolutely love Altaria, but this Mega form just gets too far away from what made that one so beautiful. Still good, but disappointing.
Mega Altaria is a great little cotton puffball that probably feels good to cuddle with.
Oh, this one hurts. Glalie is one of my favorites, but they made him so much worse. Langolier looking bastard.
Glalie adds a lot of rock that amounts to nothing in terms of design. Maybe this could have been part rock type?
Interesting how Salamence despec'd his body into making his wings really big, and also really stupid.
Paradox Future Roaring Moon.
What if Metagross, but a TIE fighter?
While I enjoy the thought that Mega Metagross is just two Metagross stuck together, much like how Beldum and Metang evolve canonically, the design isn't doing anything for me in particular.
I didn't care for the red body accents on regular Kyogre, and the shades of yellow and orange look far better in my opinion. A nice upgrade all around.
The yellow and Primal Kyogre doesn't look all too bad.
I actually think Primal Groudon is a bit much. It loses a lot of the simple cool factor that made Groudon such a classic design. But all in all, it's still pretty good.
The fire typing and magma flowing throughout its body is a definite improvement of base Groudon for me.
They're trying too hard again.
This looks like it's about to ask for the Dragon Balls to grant me a wish or something. I don't know how Shenron works, I never watched Dragon Ball.
This is just Lopunny, but better in every single way.
I actually really like the design changes when Lopunny Mega evolves.
I guess Mega Gallade looks kinda cool, but it's still fairly uninteresting.
Paradox Past Iron Valiant.
Hey, Mega Audino actually looks pretty sweet. Definitely different, but it makes for a nice comparison.
Mega Audino is pretty forgettable, especially since it loses its best ability in Regenerator upon Mega Evolution.
Mega Diancie is beautiful, and not too much of a change over its normal form, but enough to make it stand out for the better.
Much better than base Diancie, though a bit too busy to really be any higher.
And that's every Gen 6 Pokemon rated. And now let's take it over the Dribson to break everything down.
Thanks, Cloud. As usual, let's first look at the running total of our average scores. Cloud's average total was 6.17, currently his lowest scoring generation to date. As a quick note, his average for new Pokemon was 5.82, while for the Megas it was 6.68, so the Megas clearly buoyed his score quite a bit. Meanwhile, my average total was 6.84, which makes this my highest scoring generation so far. I had an average score of 6.71 for the new Pokemon and 7.04 for the Megas, so while I did favor the new forms as well, I was overall more consistent. Out of 122 new Pokemon and forms from this generation, we gave 16 of them the same rating, the majority of which we agreed were fair to great. Next, let's look at our total score count from Gen 6, and there's some expected differences here. Cloud was far harsher, handing out plenty more scores of 1 through 4, while being a little more stingy with 8s and 9s, but I was more apt to award scores of 7 and 8, and less likely to dip below 6. Interestingly, we both handed out the same number of 10s, even though we couldn't agree on any of them.
Thanks, Dribson, and now it's time for the awards honoring the top, bottom, and middle of the road Pokemon from Gen 6. First, there's the award for best and worst starter lines based on the combined score of all Pokemon in that evolution line. For our Perfect Partner Award, we have Delphox, a very solid fire starter that captured both of our hearts. And interestingly enough, the Atrocious Ally Award goes to both the Chestnut and Greninja lines, with most of the blame going to their middle evolutions. They didn't have a much lower score overall compared to the Delphox line, but they just couldn't compare.
Now there's the awards for the best and worst legendary, based on their combined score. The Mythical Masterpiece Award goes to Zygarde, whose unique color scheme and form won us over. And the Fantastical Flop Award goes to Volcanion, who is just sort of a confusing mess.
Next, we have the awards for best and worst type, calculated by finding the average score of all Pokemon in that type group. Our Excellent Element Award goes to Fighting, which previously lost in the Gen 2 ratings alongside Ice, but picked itself up for this generation. And the Catastrophic category goes to Water, a surprising type to take this award. Guess that's what happens when I award a 1 to 3 water types in a row.
Moving on to the awards for Best and Worst Glow Up, done by finding the biggest improvements and de-improvements in our combined score from one Pokemon to another in its evolution line. To keep things simple, we're not considering Mega Evolutions for this award, since it's not a permanent evolution. Our terrific transformation this time is Greninja, improving over Frogadier by a factor of 8. Even though its line lost the Partner Award, it should be recognized for improving over its middle evolution. And the Metamorphic Mistake Award goes to 2 Pokemon this time, Frogadier and Aromatisse, both losing 6 points compared to their previous Mons. We've been in the habit of giving this award to the middle Pokemon in the same starter line, so it's no surprise to see Frogadier here, and Aromatisse just didn't impress us that much.
Let's move on to the Pokemon that Dribson and I disagreed on the most, and we've got a record number 6 Pokemon to award the contentious Critter Award to, all of which received a 7-point gap between us both. Braxian, Honedge, Malamar, Dragalge, Barbaracle, Mega Gyarados, and Mega Aerodactyl. That's quite a few Pokemon to disagree on, which speaks to our differing opinions on many of these creatures.
Next up, the awards for the Best and Worst Antagonists, which as always includes rivals, gym leaders, Elite Four trainers, champions, and villain team leaders based on the average score of their teams. Let's run through the usual rules. We're not counting duplicate Pokemon, only final encounters are judged where applicable, trainers must have at least 1 new Pokemon, super bosses only count if they're fought in the post-game, and no Battle Facility exclusive trainers. In the case of Gen 6, we're awarding 2 sets of awards, one for X and Y, and one for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. For the latter, the same rules for new Pokemon apply, so only trainers who have a Mega Evolution on that team are eligible, which will include the Elite Four rematches. For X and Y, the Big Bad Boss Award goes to the champion Diantha. It's great to see a regional champion finally getting this award in the generation they're introduced in, considering Cynthia had to wait until Black and White. And honestly, you can't have a battle theme as excellent as hers without living up to it in the fight. And the Bad Boss Award goes to the Elite Four's Wickstrom. The Steel type actually didn't do too badly in this generation, but any trainer who has a Probopass isn't going to win any favors. For Oras, the Big Bad Boss Award goes to Brendan and May if they have a Blaziken on their team. Thanks to Mega Blaziken and the other Pokemon on this team, your rivals have a pretty great selection this time. And fun fact, they also take the second spot with their Sceptile team variant. And the Bad Boss Award goes to Archie, who actually won the Big Bad Boss Award back in Gen 3, but sank himself, no pun intended, thanks to Mega Sharpedo and Muck. It should be noted that Archie's score is actually pretty high compared to the other Bad Boss Award winners, and considering he has a Crobat and Mightyena on his team, he's at least got some good team members.
And for Gen 6, we've got special awards for the Best and Worst Mega Evolutions, with both X and Y and Oras getting their own set of awards. For X and Y, the Magnificent Mega Award goes to 3 Mega forms, Charizard X, Ampharos, and Blaziken. We debated on giving Ampharos the extra point thanks to that luscious hair, but in the end, the honor is going to these 3 excellent new forms. And the measly Mega Award goes to Manectric, who seriously needs a groomer stat. For Oras, the Magnificent Mega Award goes to Danshi, already a great Pokemon in its regular form. The Mega Evolution keeps many of the same traits while boosting it up significantly. And the measly Mega Award goes to Sharpedo, which suffered thanks to some questionable design choices.
And let's wrap it up with the Special Honors Awards, although there's not a lot of excitement this time. The Hall of Fame would honor Pokemon who received a perfect score of 10 from both of us, but as we said earlier, we couldn't agree on any 10s this time. The Hall of Shame is reserved for Pokemon that received a score of 1 from both of us, but I didn't hand out a single one, so no one gets this special spot either. And the Hall of Tame is for those who received a score of 5 from both of us, and we do have 2 Pokemon to add here, Furfrou and Mega Medicham.
Well, that's all we have for Gen 6, and as a quick recap, here's all of our scores for this generation. I'm not familiar at all with X and Y, which has probably soured my opinion on many of the new creatures introduced in this game. I'm also sure that both my Gen 3 bias and having played Omega Ruby before, even if it was several years ago now, made me appreciate the Mega Evolutions a little more, especially the ones from Oras. Even though I wasn't as keen on many of these Pokemon, and Gen 6 had quite a few stinkers, there's still plenty of great creatures from this generation. And that's something I can appreciate, how even what I believe to be a rougher patch, there's still stuff to admire. So while I may not be as keen on Gen 6 as far as its Pokemon are concerned, there's still plenty of creativity on display, even if it's fewer and farther between.
Gen 6 is probably the generation of Pokemon that I have the most mixed feelings about. The games themselves aren't all that great, but this was the first time I was actively following Pokemon news of the new generation. ranging from official reveals, speculation, and Korokoro leaks every month like clockwork. This was also the generation that I really got into playing the game competitively, mostly because, during this time, I was in high school and had a close friend that was also into competitive Pokemon battling. The Gen 6 games are also the oldest games I have never replayed. I've played through Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, and Unova at least twice each, meaning I really only have one playthrough of the game in my memory, and it's getting on 10 years old at this point. And, across my copy of Y and Alpha Sapphire, this may be the generation in which I've put in the most time, a lot of that going to competitive Pokemon battling in preparation for it, as well as getting extremely close to legitimately completing the Pokédex in these games, aided by my eventual modding of my 3DS through 2-packs, followed by web hacks. Another memory of Gen 6 Pokemon to me. Looking back, I do have a lot of positive thoughts about the Generation 6 games, even if most of them appear to be based around the community of the game and where my life was at the time, instead of the games themselves.
With all that said, if you like this video, leave a like and a comment and subscribe to see more. We've got plenty of other Pokemon rating videos uploaded if you need to satisfy your craving for more Pokemon rating content. And while you're here, let us know what your favorite Gen 6 Pokemon and Mega Evolution are down below. For now, this is Cloud Connection and Dribson signing off. Catch you later!